What's your special education story? This episode of the Special Education Inner Circle podcast is all about you and your story. Your story and your role at the IEP table matters. So I just got done at our Seattle Business Building Weekend for parents and teachers who are training to become master IEP coaches. Now, their story could be, I help parents through the IEP process. But that doesn't tell a lot about who they are and why they do what they do and how they're truly going to help somebody through their IEP process because of their own experience. So even if you're not going to become a master IEP coach, even if you're not looking to use your story to help others at this time, your story really does impact who you are as a teacher, who you are as a parent, and how you're going to design an IEP that works for your child, for your student in a way that's different than everybody else's IEP. So here, for example, this weekend I was working with Gretchen. Gretchen is a master IEP coach, and she just opened up her doors. She's taking on clients, and she is a certified general education teacher. She is a special education teacher. She has case management experience. She has left the classroom. And when I really talked to her about what is your story, it turns out that she really wants to help parents of struggling preschoolers prep for kindergarten. Now that's a story, right? That's not just I help parents with IEPs. That's, you know what? I have experience as a general education teacher, as a special education teacher. And I see the pain that happens when we have struggling preschoolers who are not ready for kindergarten and parents don't know what to ask for inside of the IEP. And I love to help them kind of get this document truly created so this transition from preschool to kindergarten is easier. Her story and her experience is going to support parents through their own process in a totally different way. Now, parents, your story matters when it comes to that parent input section of the IEP. There's an entire section inside of the IEP that is called parent educational concerns or something like that. Okay. So it's everywhere. It's across the entire country. Okay. There's a section for your voice. That's not a place to just kind of dump all of our complaints. That's a place for you to share what your child needs, and what your child needs really is impacted by your story. So your story, maybe your child has complex medical needs, and your perspective on what you need from the school is much different than maybe a child who does not have a complicated medical background, but they do have dyslexia. And I'm thinking here about Aaron, who, again, he was at the Seattle weekend and he was, opening up to his doors for his master IEP coach practice. And he has experience as a dad helping his daughter who has complex needs. And I'm like, that's your story, because there's so many parents out there, and you might be one of them, that you're nodding your head. You're like, yes, my story is different. My child's IEP needs to be different. And knowing how to communicate that inside of the parent educational concerns section and submitting parental kind of concerns letters before the IEP meeting and expressing what your child truly needs as an individual to have this plan that is going to address the unique needs of your child and prepare them for further education, employment, independent living. It's not just what the law says it is supposed to be in your child's IEP. It's what's your story and what your child needs, because that makes a difference. And being able to communicate that is huge. So Aaron just opened up his doors. So he helps parents who have children with complex needs build IEPs that work. Because when you have complex needs, we need a totally different document than if we need to support a child who has dyslexia, right? So I had Kathy, I worked with her this weekend, and Kathy has a ton of experience for her child who has dyslexia. And she's like, you know what? I didn't know what to ask for in this research-based, reading curriculum and highly trained teachers. I didn't have that. And I had to create that for my daughter. We had to create this document that was individualized. Parents who have children with dyslexia, if you're listening right and you know what I'm talking about, you're like, nobody's hearing me when it comes to what my child specifically needs, not just in the classroom to support their dyslexia and the things that they need in the classroom academically, but dyslexia impacts a child throughout their entire school day. And Kathy understands that from her experience of what a document needs to look like, not just so we close a gap in reading, but so we can support a child all around. So you as a parent, your story and what you need for your child, it matters. And there's a place inside of it. Now, let me talk to teachers here just for a minute. Your story and why you got into teaching, why you're doing what you're doing. I'm not going to give you a lecture on. Remember your why. You know why. You know why you got it. And here's the problem. A lot of times, special education teachers get dumped into a category of, oh, special education teachers do this, or this is what a special education classroom looks like. In fact, you as a teacher might have gotten kind of sucked into that, and you're doing things that other teachers do just because that's how it's supposed to be, or that's how it's been done, or that's what you've been told. You know what? Step into who you are and what's your story, not just your why, what's your story. See, my story before I had become a teacher is that I watched my mom advocate for my brother, and I could see the pain in our family that happened when nobody understood who my brother was and what my mom wanted. Now, here's the other thing. My mom also had a lot of friends who had children with Down syndrome. Those families wanted something completely different. It didn't matter that their child also had Down syndrome. My mom wanted something different for my brother based on her story and her kind of perspective of what our family should be doing, could be doing, right? What our experience was going to be. Because let's just face it, all families are different, right? So like our version of a vacation is different than somebody else's version of vacation. And the skills needed for our version of a vacation was different than another family. That's okay. So I watched my mom struggle to have her voice heard. And I watched my mom struggle to explain to educators and teams the potential of my brother, because he did not have a high level of expressive language. He was very quiet. He still is. He's very quiet. That went along with having some low expectations back in the day. Sometimes that still happens now. Okay. So my story as a teacher was, one, I want to talk to parents and find out what is their perspective on what education should be for their child. What can I do to fill the gaps that they're looking for, that they need this to be filled because they can't do it at home and they need this to happen. So that was a huge part, was the parent side of things. The other side was I always knew that I could never know the potential of a child. I did not know what they were capable of, but I did know that it was my job as a teacher to figure that out and to move them forward. People told my mom all the time, he's not going to write, he's not going to read, he's not going to hold a job, he's not going to be independent. He absolutely can do all of those things with supports. So what? Right? He can do all of those things. And if she would have listened, right? If she would have listened, maybe he wouldn't be where he's at. So as an educator, my classroom looked different. In fact, my boss called me out. She came in one day and she's like, "What are you doing?" Because I had all my students doing an activity that technically was, we'll say, not in their IEP. I was teaching them differently. Well, I was doing the things in the IEP, but she, came in and she's like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Well, we're doing this." And she says, "I had no idea. I had no idea that these students could do this." And I'm like, nobody ever tried. So maybe as a teacher, maybe that's your story. Maybe you're the teacher who does things so different and you're not afraid of what the other teachers think, or if your boss walks in and says, "What are you doing?" Because your story has set you up for success in your classroom to do things differently. And that's what you need to lean into. We are so caught up into the generalizations of, "Oh, that parent is that parent," or "that special education teacher, this is what special education classrooms look like." No, you have a story and you need to be unique. You need to be able to step out. We had Hillary, who is at our weekend building her business. Her doors are open now, where she's helping parents of fidgety first graders get the supports that they need to be successful inside and outside of the classroom. Fidgety first graders, right? How many of you guys know a parent who has been like, oh my gosh, I thought maybe when my child matured a little bit and got into first grade, that maybe they wouldn't be as fidgety or as off task or not able to follow directions, right? These are all the things that happen. Like in first grade, we thought, okay, like we got through preschool, we got through kindergarten, we're just kind of, waiting for the child to catch up. But no, now we've got this fidgety first grader who needs supports so they can access their education. Let's see. We also had Latina. Latina is a mom who is raising two boys with several different diagnoses. So that all falls into kind of the anxiety, ADHD, autism. Her story and how she supports her children is really crucial to how she's going to help families through the system in a way that assumes boys just mature later, right? So she's got stories that are going to support. And now we can build IEP documents, and she can help other parents build IEP documents that are not under the wait and see, or because, the child is a boy, that they mature later and we don't need to worry about things. No, that's not true, right? We had Michelle. Let's see, was this the last one? I'm kind of like picturing the table that we were all working at this weekend. So we have Michelle. Michelle is a special education teacher, works in high schools, and loves to build transitions plans that work in the real world. Right? We all know that transition, but this is core for her. She does not like the idea that she's going to teach her high school students and then they're going to graduate school and go sit at home all day. She wants to make sure part of her story is that she needs to make sure that high school students have IEPs that prepare them for life after high school in a way that prevents them from sitting at home all day. So parents, you know that, right? As a parent, you're thinking, gosh, like my child's already in middle school, or maybe they're in high school. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do when it's time for, the bus to stop coming? You have to lean into your story and what you need from the school. So parents, that's how you individualize your child's IEP. It's not just about like, I'm going to individualize this to make sure that my child gets exactly the right reading curriculum that they need, but there's a story behind that, and there's supports that are needed, and there's uniqueness and individuality. And I want you to lean into your story and express to the team. Let them know, you know what? They don't know your story. If you don't share it, unless you're a teacher who's listening to this, and then maybe you're going to lean in and ask the parents in a different way, right? But here's the thing. A lot of times things are assumed. People would assume that my family, that, my brother has Down syndrome, has the same goals as another family who has an individual with Down syndrome. No, that's not true. The families are so different in our Down syndrome community, just like they are in the autism community or they are in the epilepsy community. A diagnosis does not make all desired outcomes the same. Your story and who you are as a family, who the child is as a person, and who you are as a teacher, and how you individualize, how you approach special education to make sure all of your students are getting appropriate education. All of those things coming together build something that's unique in a way that you might get pushback along the way. And that means that you're doing things right. When your classroom looks different, you got this. When you're, writing your parent concerns letter and you're like, the team has never heard a parent say these things before, you got this. Okay. So you need to lean into your story. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, wait, I want to be one of those people that helps, other people through the IEP process. You want to lean into your story and use your experiences to help other people through the IEP process. That's what we do inside of the Master IEP Coach mentorship. I would love to connect with you. I'd love to support you, to lean into your story, to help you build your expertise so you can help others who have gone through what you have gone through. I want you to head over to masteriepcoach.com. You'll see a bunch of resources for there. You'll see how we can connect. You'll see how we can work together in that. So just head over to masteriepcoach.com. You'll see a guide that you can download for the 3 pillars that you need to be an excellent IEP coach and get paid for your expertise. That's there. I hope to work with you. And I hope that you lean into your story after listening to this and know that when things feel different, when you're like, I think I'm doing this different, I don't know if I'm doing it right, different is right. I'll see you guys next time on the Special Education Inner Circle podcast.